Our issues, our voices, our views. This is Politics in Black. What's happening, family? I love it. I love it.
That's why
I've been waiting a long time to do that again, right?
Turn your microphone down.
We are back, and we are live on another broadcast of Politics in Black, brought to you by the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants out of Los Angeles, a.k.a. NAASD-LA. If it's your first time joining us, my name is Chad Brown. I'm only one half of the hosting team here on Politics in Black. Sitting right next to me is the lovely Friday Jones. Friday, say what's up to the people.
What's up, everybody? We are here. We got a live packed show. We got some guests that you may have seen, right?
Yeah,
if you've been following the AB 3121 hearings, you are going to be like, oh, I remember that.
They have been showing up. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because the very first thing I want to do is remind the family that next week, Wednesday and Thursday, March 29th and 30th, the AB 3121 Task Force is once again meeting in Sacramento, California. This is, I think, the 13th meeting.
What I know is the third to last one. I don't know how many we had.
You got the countdown
But
going.
I know how many we have left.
All right. But we are, and Friday is absolutely correct, we are swiftly approaching the release of the final report of the task force, due out at the end of June or July 1st, however you want to think about it. But we are in the home stretch here for this task force. So I'm happy that we're having this conversation today about political strategy. And we got two powerhouses in the house to talk to us about this, because they've been on the ground doing some political strategy. So we're going to have a conversation today. So I'm ready to get into it. I don't want to waste any time here. So in studio today with us, we have two special guests, and I'm going to start with Reggie, Mr. Reggie Romaine. Mr. Reggie Romaine is a native of Los Angeles, born in 1966. He attended Catholic schools in the LA area, and after being incarcerated for 8 months, Reggie began his activism for those incarcerated. Thank you for that, brother. Reggie became a barber in 1996, all right, I'm going to hit you up, and has been a business owner for the last 26 years. Reggie has founded the 1619 Reparations political party and has attended 11 of the California Reparations Task Force meetings.
That's where
I met the brother at the meeting. So welcome to Politics in Black, Brother Reggie.
Thanks for having me. First of all, I appreciate you guys, y'all work. You guys put the fire in us.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Thank you, brother. It's a collective effort.
And let me correct you guys. I started meeting 11.
Okay.
Which was in Oakland.
Okay, yeah.
And then I went to San Diego.
I saw you in San Diego.
Sacramento. And back to Sacramento on the 29th and 30th.
All right, man. I'm going to see you up
Appreciate
there, brother.
Yes,
brother. Go ahead. You want to bring in
Yeah,
Dr.
and we have Dr. Truth Bay with us. Now, Dr. Truth Bay, if you all were not at the LA Task Force hearing, Dr. Truth Bay is one of the women who set it off.
Yes,
she was there, and I was a witness to it.
That public comment was fire.
It was very fire.
Yeah.
Look, we're going to talk about it. Dr. Truth Bay received her MFA in 2001 in therapy art. She also received her doctorate in neuro-linguistic programming. After suddenly losing her son to gun violence, she started the Kingdom Warriors Foundation. Dr. Truth Bay is a native Los Angelino, has turned her attention to advocating for reparations for descendants of slavery, and the goal is to establish a new political governance, District 21, for descendants of slavery through a network called the Hip Hop Fraternity, a Black think tank. With her partner, Reggie, who Chad just introduced, they've established the 1619 party, and we welcome Dr. Truth Bay, and we're going to talk about it all today. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Welcome, Dr. Bay. Welcome. Well, let's just get started, because you guys are doing some interesting work on the ground with political strategy and the 1619 party. So tell us a little bit about the 1619 party.
Let's start with the name.
Let's start with the name. Yeah, that's a powerful name.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Reggie.
Okay, well, as we've been going to these meetings, we find out we really don't have a name as Black people. Mm-hmm. So the study, it boiled down to lineage. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And 1619 is a great number.
Yeah.
To have,
that's a consequential date, absolutely.
Because we're lineage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what we start. Not saying that all Blacks is not going to be involved. We're going to do some more assembly bills to pull them on, but for us to get the lineage out the way, that was a huge hurdle. Mm-hmm. And of course, reparations is a word that they don't want to hear. So, 1619, the number that they don't want to hear, and reparations is definitely a word they don't want to hear.
That's right.
And of course, we are the new party.
Yeah. So tell us where you're at in the organization of the party. Like, where are you guys at right now on the ground, and how can people help?
Literally, this is first phase.
Okay.
And so we're working on getting signatures, but the need for us to have a separate governance, specifically for persons of African descent, is mandatory.
Yeah.
And so it was natural to have a political party, which we don't have one.
That's right.
Specifically for us.
Not one that advocates our interests. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Right. And so as close as we had was the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense in 66. That was as close to it. But again, it didn't last, like the Freedmen's Bureau as well. But the 1619 Reparations Party specifically has an era on who it represents. So right now we're just telling people, a lot of people who still don't know what the deal is with reparations, descendants of slaves. So we want to establish a party so that they can have somewhere to go when it's time to do that mass exodus, whenever that would be. But we're saying within 6 months, we should gain some traction. And really, it's the first rounds of introducing something that people can relate to. So this is where we are at the beginning stages.
Gotcha.
So let's talk a little bit. 3/5 of a compromise, we tend to look at it from, we were dehumanized and we were 3/5 of a human being, and the dominant culture didn't even consider us people. But when you look at the truth of what that decision was about, it actually was about giving additional voting power to the folks in more rural states who had smaller populations than some of the cities. And so it was, we have the Electoral College today, but it was a way for the white men of the South to essentially equalize their voting power to the larger populations in the North. And so as you all are moving into this space of how this works, if you could make a recommendation to the federal government in terms of what our equalization would be or should be in voting, because we are at 46 million in terms of our population.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know how we're the only people that through 150 years, 200 years have still maintained to be only 15%, of America's population. But
That
some
census.
kind of way, we are just this 15%.
Right.
So at 15%, we are never going to be in a numeric majority position. So if you could sort of, with a magic wand, say this would equalize the black vote in a meaningful way in this country, what would you recommend in that space?
Well, first of all, the census, we can't go by it at all because I seriously don't believe that we're less than, they always say 9 to 15%.
Yeah.
But our main quest is land acquisition. Land acquisition, doesn't matter how many of us are there, as long as it's maybe 2 or 3 or a group that in a certain area where it's been abandoned, all we're asking is for land. Because land, we can produce our own everything.
That's right.
And that will cut out a lot of the imbalance and inequity when it comes to creating wealth or creating jobs, construction. So a lot of these things really boils down to land. So whatever it is, it goes lead down to property, real estate. That's the key.
Okay.
Well, I see a lot too. When I came at the 11th meeting, I had to go back and watch the first one to catch up. Like I was in college, you know what I mean? Wow, it was just crazy to hear about everything that they did, but I didn't hear about them speaking about the 40 acres and the mule.
Right.
Everybody's concerned about the dollar amount. You got 10 million over here, 5 million over here. That's going to come. Let us focus on our land.
And a lot of your, in front of the task force, a lot of your public comments have been about land.
You've been bringing that to the public comment. Appreciate
I had
you
to because it was lacking. So, we have to stick to that, because if you look back, I think it was one show I watched at the end, you guys have Martin Luther King, and he was talking about how they brought the Europeans over here and gave them 5
That's right.
acres for
That's
5
right.
years. And the testimony was a lady that said it too, and that just rung a bell. It's just like if you can give away millions of acres of land to immigrants.
Right.
Can we get 1 acre?
I need 10. You need 10 to work with the
10 at least.
FDA.
But look, it goes a little
Rules,
deeper.
right?
But it goes a little deeper because if you look at what they did for them, They builded college for them to learn how to
Learn.
Yeah,
agriculture.
land
Right.
colleges.
And
The
then
mindset.
once they had that 40, they went bigger.
Yeah.
So you do that, and so we just don't want 40 acres.
Oh yeah.
Not
all
no
the
more.
all the
It's
support.
about 400
Yeah.
acres now.
All the
Right.
support that
Okay.
comes
Per
with that
family
land as well.
You
yeah.
say you got to keep that growth going, and I don't hear them talking about that.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think they don't talk about it because nobody has a good idea of how to do it. I think that's been the problem on land, is that we have state-owned lands, right? Obviously here in California, and if I had my way, those would be lands that would be reallocated to our communities. We're 6.5% of the population here, right? So
Man, that number's getting smaller and
it
smaller.
gets smaller and
It
smaller,
is,
right?
but we are the 5th largest by state, even
Yeah.
at the
Okay.
percentage.
And by numbers,
By
right?
numbers.
Right?
Yes.
But as far as like controlling our own neighborhoods, right? Gentrification, drug war, all mass incarceration, everything that's been done to us, we don't really have neighborhoods that we control anymore, right?
Right.
So talk to us about how you envision it, because I think what the land piece needs is bold ideas, right? So talk to us how you envision something like that happening.
Well, it starts with political science, first and foremost. Who owns the land? A lot of it is city-owned property.
Yep.
So if we're not in tune with our local governance, it's just like eating air, running after the wind. It does nothing. So when you find a source to say city-owned property, so mayor so-and-so owns this, and my city councilman is this and that person, then you request or attend the city council. That's why we want to encourage our black families to make sure that they attend their local city governance in order to know what is running around them, because every city is ran differently, but at the same time on a global scale they still have the same procedures. So there are times like Gavin Newsom, he signed some sort of request for nonprofits to retain the surplus land for $1.
Okay.
So if we're not on top of that, then it flies right by us. And nonprofits that have been struggling and need space, they won't know about this. So it's just really keeping in tune with your local governance. There is always surplus land sitting there.
Yeah.
And you document it. What's the address? What's the cross street? You make a map. You gather your people in your neighborhood and start creating a team of real estate navigators.
That's
you don't
right.
have to have a degree.
I like that.
Just go for it
Yeah.
and place a stake on it,
And that's sort of what downtown Crenshaw did.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Sort of.
I mean, they had their eyes set on, high dollar, highly visible properties in community, but the fact that they got 13,000, local neighborhood residents together in order to attempt to form a land trust, I think there's value in that. I think even for a political party, there's something to learn from that particular action, because we don't hear about black land trusts.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that was the major one downtown. What they did garnish a lot of community support and weekly meetings, but at the same time, there still needs to be a period to that, because in the end, we didn't ultimately get the property.
Yeah.
Right.
It still went over. So there is a components of consistency that has to be there, but we definitely need people to be consistent in acquiescing any type of property.
Yeah.
And what is a land navigator? That sounds, I ain't never heard that before.
I think that's new.
That's a new terminology. You dropping
like
new
that.
terms
Yeah.
today, so
Making
you're gonna
stuff
have
up
to
along the way.
you're gonna have to tell us
That's
right.
what that is,
That's
though.
right.
Well, it's the same
conceptually.
thing. Yes, it's the same thing as a housing navigator. So you identify the property and you really go forth with the procedures on obtaining it. And there's really no rule book to it. It's just people who have that knowledge and the source of who owns that land to have a relationship. Relationships matter. And so when you see a property and it's probably privately owned, if it's not city owned, you form a relationship with them. You say, hey, this is what we want to do, and this is our community.
Yep.
We would like to have maybe a youth center or a supermarket or a mental health wellness center, just something to start the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And really, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just consistency.
Yeah.
And it just fared different results in the end.
Yeah.
Well, I did a little study.
Okay.
It's 996 million acres of land in California.
Just in California
Just
alone.
in California.
The government owns 45.5 million
So
acres
that's
here.
like
Wow.
half.
Damn near half.
Wow. Wow.
And I see it like this. You talking about some confusion on doing the land. It's like a marriage, right?
Yeah.
When they brought us over here and they're the original hate crimers to
Yeah,
us.
absolutely.
Well, all they did.
Absolutely.
I don't even want to mention it.
Yeah.
It make me want to drink, but, but however.
After the show.
Yeah, that part. But it's like a marriage. Give us half of what you got.
Yeah. No,
Simple as that.
I agree with you, brother.
45.5, you give us half of that.
Yeah, I agree with you, brother.
Just on California alone.
Alone.
Not telling you guys, we going nation,
Yeah.
all around the nation with
Well, we got to set the example here.
But we
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah.
So that's and then I was kind of generous with Mr. Sawyer, Assemblyman Sawyer, and he was going to brag. I went over one of the meetings, maybe the third or fourth, and he mentioned that he closed 2 jails down. So I looked and see how many square feet. I mean, how many acres were these jails? 300 acres is approximately what a jail is.
Yeah.
I said, just give us those 2 jails.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, brother.
So we can release our prisoners, and it's time for us to rehabilitate them.
Right.
Because
Our
why
own
are we
programs.
leading in second and third strikes if you're supposed to be rehabilitating
Right,
us?
right.
Obviously you're not. So we in kindergarten putting this circle in this square every time.
That's right.
Oh, we're going to do this bill. We're going to do that. No. Give them to us. We're going to
That's
put our own staff there. We got the best.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, agape love we're going to show them.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure these numbers go down. So I'm going to tell them this. I challenge you, just like you gave the Europeans 5 acres for 5 years, give us these jails, give us 300 more acres around them.
Yeah.
Give us 5 years
Yeah.
to produce our human being, a human
Right.
being, not a grape.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And let's see what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
Okay?
No,
And
I
the
like
key
that.
is they say that he shut it down, but what was he planning to do with it? Nothing.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why we have to be aggressive in these particular spaces for
Yeah.
that.
He
No,
was talking
you
about
have-
renting it out. He said he was going to release it out.
No, you definitely have to. I agree with
It's
that. You
gonna
definitely have to
sit
be
there,
aggressive.
trust me.
And I think we got to learn lessons too, because one of
Yes.
the things that when we talk about like Bruce's Beach, because I guess that's the
Right.
that's the most famous or the most notable instance of land return to our
Yeah.
community, right? Nationwide,
Refund,
right?
yeah.
But then we see that the Bruce family sold that back to the city of
At a
Manhattan
steep
Beach, right?
discount.
But
Right.
but a lot of that was motivated due to the zoning that was on
Right.
that land that they couldn't do anything with it, right? So have you guys thought about that and on the land piece, making sure that the zoning is not restrictive to us, so we can do things like you're talking about, Brother Reggie, where we can use that to rehab our people, give our people parcels of land, give them access to,
Yeah.
build businesses and start our own Black Wall Streets,
That's
for
a
lack of a
very-
better term
We
right now.
could, because you
Yeah.
can incubate there. Although I don't know if those lands, because that came up at the hearings too, that some of the land was toxic. So I don't know if those 2 prisons in particular are part
It's
of the
10.
toxic ones.
It's 10 closed together, so that's
10
only 2.
total? Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And
they
the
can
thing
clean
is
it
that-
before they give it to us. They know how to clean it.
Right. There are requirements and zoning really goes to the same people who creates the zone. If
Right.
it's commercial or residential, it's really up to the politicians.
That's right.
They can change it at any time.
Yeah.
There's something called CEQA, the California Equity Qualifications Era. And what that is, it tells you that it's trying to protect certain wildlife by preventing certain buildings being built. And CEQA really, it's a group of people, non-named people that says, oh, we don't want this property built here because it's blocking my view of the beach or it's
Yeah.
blocking the trees.
Yep.
And so when these group of people have an autonomy, who really makes up the rules? So which is why I say the zoning really is a non-factor if you have a concrete plan.
Okay.
So if you want to build a wellness center in a residential area, you should be able to work with that politician, or they should be able to work with the community and say,
Yeah.
yes, this is what you can do with it,
Yes.
and give us their blessing,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. No, I think what happens is we have, private developers with a lot of money. They come in and they, monopolize
Yes.
in our community, right? We see it happening over here with the mall, right? And that being sold to a group, not for, I think it was for less money, wasn't it?
Oh,
It
yeah.
was,
And
it was
for
less money, right.
But it was, there was some kind of connection there, right? That we know of, some,
Political capital.
some political
That's
capital,
the-
right? Exactly.
That's the other part of the equation. I want to move a little bit, and I want to talk about some of what we've seen as far as political parties. The candidates that ran on reparations here in California, there was Somerville down in Long Beach. He was the main one locally that I can bring up. But even across the country, we saw Gabe Piemonte in Chicago ran on a reparations platform. He didn't win his race. We saw in South Carolina, Marcel Dixon, he ran on a reparations, a reparatory campaign and didn't win his race, you know. And so as you all are forming a new party, you know, obviously running candidates becomes part of it, but also getting existing like not legislators, candidates, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, you don't want just the one person running a platform. We've got to get it to the point where across party lines, across demographics that we would not necessarily expect to hear reparatory policy from. We've got to start making that demand because we regardless of who governs, our problems remain the same, right? Yeah. So as you guys are coming into standing up this particular party, do you have any ideas or thoughts about what might be necessary long term to run candidates who are going to have policy? Is it better, you know, to talk policy once people get into their position? I just want to hear like some of your thoughts in that space.
Well, one of the procedures is to train the youth right now. So by the time they're 18, they'll know exactly what they can do. We need fresh, new leadership, however it comes. Yes. So starting to train them, elementary school, high school students, that is really the key because they're forgotten about in politics anyway. And once we, nothing is overnight. So we're saying a year from now, we'll have more than one candidate in certain areas to run for whatever. Like right now, city council, we need maybe 3 seats filled up. You know, it's been vacant for a while. Thank you, Neri Martinez, but that's a whole different story. So if we had our kids trained now, we would have those seats already filled. So really, it's about engagement and having them start, even with the petitions for this ballot, teaching them how to engage and communicate. The candidates we can make up candidates as well as we go because right now this governance is not working. Yeah. Whatever can fit to the people, I believe that we actually can start anything, you know, as far as that.
And let me add to that. You guys got to understand that this last election was won by the majority black districts in states that haven't been turned in decades.
Talking about federal, the presidential election.
Biden and Kamala, Harris, VP.
Yeah.
Our vote is powerful.
Absolutely.
But we voting on what?
Yeah.
Nothing.
We haven't got nothing in 160 years. Yeah. So we're going to show them, if we can bring somebody, we pull some votes from them, then we're going to make them open up some eyes. Yeah. That we really need to pay these people.
Absolutely. Yes.
Our motto is no reparations, no vote.
Yeah.
We vote propositions only.
Yeah.
You know, right now. You feel me? Because we're not wasting our vote to you no more.
I agree with that.
It's enough. We're done with that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point, Reggie. You know,
propositions only.
Yeah, propositions only. But we do have to understand the power of our vote because, you know, despite being, you know, they say 15% of the population, right? We are one of the largest voting blocks.
We vote at 86%.
Right? Yeah. So going back to your example, we voted, you know,
we come out
80+% for the Democrats in the last election, right? So no, we have power in our vote. We have to recognize that.
Amazing power, yes.
All right, and talking about voting power, just in terms across the country, I think eligible black voters, I believe is 32.7, almost 33 million, and our total population is about 46%. So even in terms of our population, we have a high
46 million
number of us that are qualified to vote across the country. I know in talking to young black men in particular, they are just so unmotivated because the job market isn't the best. Even if they, you know, have girlfriends and want to marry and or start a family, they don't see how they're able to sustain family. And I definitely think, like, in terms of political party, filling voter needs that we know are typically just not, you know, we saw Stacey Abrams doing her barbershop. Her barbershop tour. I don't think that was the most successful barbershop tour, but she did the barbershop tour, right, to try to engage the men. That was her thing. That's what she did. But I want to know, like, what you talked a little bit about the youth. Do you have any potential focus really on, men? On young black men?
Absolutely. Black men, they're the number one target when it comes to breaking up the family, so to speak. So we definitely want to have something that's more relative, but then it's a two-edged sword. We have to be engaging too. We can't just say, oh, well, I don't know nothing about politics. It's just the way it is. It has to be a give and take relationship because we can only care about us. And the black men, for sure, black women, we want to continue to encourage and uplift them. But at the same time, our black men has to listen sometimes, okay? We can't be...
You sound like my wife.
We can't be all chiefs and no Indians. So, but overall, the compromise, I believe, together, that we can accomplish something great if we just compromise with each other. Just
That's right.
work on communicating little by little, and then on a larger platform, we'll be able to have our own council meetings without even batting an eye. But we can't even get into that space if we don't start off with the small dialogue within each other.
That's a great point. I think that's a great point to go to break into. So,
I wanted to hear from Reggie. So when
Yes,
we
Reggie.
come back,
When we come back,
we're gonna finish the second half of this. Let us take a quick commercial break.
But don't forget, if you're in the chat, hit the super chat, or you can donate to us on the Cash App, $NAASD-LA, or on the Venmo, same thing, NAASD-LA.
Like and share the video and come back so we can get Reggie's response.
We'll be right back.
14th California Reparations Task Force is scheduled for March 29th and March 30th.
All California Reparations Task Force meetings are open to the public and welcome public comment. Amend the Mass Media Group provides coverage of all California Reparations Task Force meetings. Tune in, tap in, and testify. Reparations Now, fam.
The 14th California Reparations Task Force is scheduled for March 29th and March 30th.
All California Reparations Task Force meetings are open to the public and welcome public comment. Amend the Mass Media Group provides coverage of all California Reparations Task Force meetings. Tune in, tap in, and testify. Reparations Now, fam.
What's happening, family? We are back from break, but before we get into it, and we're going to let Reggie respond here, we're going to listen to a quick audio announcement from the California Black Women's Health Project. So let's roll that.
At California Black Women's Health Project, your overall health is the top priority. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the Black community in numerous ways and continues to hit underserved communities. Testing and vaccinations have been helpful, but now there is more you can do if you test positive for COVID-19. New treatments are available if you test positive through your healthcare provider for free, but you don't need to have health insurance to access these treatments. Visit covid19.ca.gov/treatment or call 833-686-5051 to get information on testing and treatments near you.
All right.
Yeah.
And I actually want to shout the California Black Women's Health Project
Please do.
because they have been doing great work, obviously, in the healthcare for women, but they also have really been behind the scenes true supporters of reparations and this California effort. And I just want to give them a little love and throw flowers for the work that they've done in helping to really be behind some of the orgs like CJEC, like NAASD-LA, ARC over there in Northern California, ETM Media. They have really just been a powerhouse in terms of assisting us as reparationists, and we got to remember those organizations because they are few and far between.
So, and they're our first sponsor, so shout out California Black Women's Health Project. Thank you.
There we go. There you go. All right, so let's get back to Reggie. We were talking before the break about young black men being disenfranchised voters, not really being motivated to be part of the political process. So, Reggie, what were your thoughts?
Well, I can go further than that. You got to understand, everybody's programmed when you're young through society, your parents or whatever. You're programmed to be who you are. Just like with racism, you was programmed for that. Gangbangers, you're programmed for that. We have to catch them before they get programmed.
Yeah.
We got to go way back. Because once they get, now we got to deprogram and try and reprogram.
Right.
Which is harder. You know, but what I was thinking too is HBCUs here. We need an HBCU here.
Yeah.
Yes,
And what I was
we
thinking
do.
about our property as
Yeah,
far as
none.
the jails, and I got this from Nipsey. He got a song called Heaven or Hell. You can go to prison or you can go to jail. You know what I'm saying? I want these prisons to have a ladder, a walkway to our first HBCU here.
Yeah.
And you know what, in the recommendations that came out, and we saw them going through the education piece, and I know I personally gave them 3 versions of HBCUs they could do based on just the economies that are here. We have Hollywood here. We had this is a farming state. I don't know what they told you, but California cows are real.
Yeah.
So we are a farming state, and we also are a political state. This is the largest, political state. The Democrat county committee is the largest in the country. They really move the Democratic Party here from California. So politics should be an HBCU thing, but you didn't
Right.
see that in the recommendations, and I have to admit I was very surprised by that.
Yeah.
Well, to go a little
tried
further,
that.
we have something that the CRT is doing. And I don't know if you guys watched the news the last couple of days, but Temecula, it was at a school board meeting.
Yes,
and
with Pastor
and Brother Dion. Brother
Yes.
Dion gave it to him. And the white lady basically told him go back to Africa.
Yeah.
So we can't even have African studies in our school in the United States. Not one.
Yeah.
But we
Taking
have
with
European
Descendants.
studies, and if
Oh,
you,
it was
if you
German, Asian,
Yeah.
but if you say
Mexican.
you were a serf, your people were a serf, go back to serfdom in Europe, right? Then you're.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying
stepped
you
out of
can't
line
be
then,
racist.
yeah.
You're racist, and
Reverse
you
racism,
can't say that because now I'm so wounded.
Well,
in your truth.
DeSantis already showed us in Florida that there is absolutely no room for any type of African studies whatsoever. So we definitely have to have our own curriculum, and that traces back to NAACP, with Booker T and the Tuskegee
Yep.
and how they started their institution. That is exactly what is needed in California. The
Yeah.
HBCU should not even be a discussion. It should be.
Yeah.
Just
It should be automatic. We
Yeah.
have what is it, King Drew. And
Yeah.
we know Mark Ridley Thomas was very instrumental in sort of breathing life back into that particular hospital. But that is the
MLK.
closest thing that we have to an HBCU, and it should not be
Right.
the only thing. If we as entertainers, my God, we are the ultimate consummate American entertainer. If we can be your entertainment, then we should not only learn how to do the entertainment, produce, write, whether it's music also, but we should be in the ancillary professions like accounting,
Right.
attorneys, talent management,
Yes.
sports management, right? We got all these athletes, 80-90% of the
right.
NFL and the NBA, the WNBA. We are the consummate entertainers, and I'm like, that alone warrants one
Right.
HBCU.
Yeah.
And because we are
One.
cannabis and we have bore the weight of
brunt of that, yeah.
cannabis, right? Arrests and prosecutions and incarcerations here.
But
in
definitely
the state
not
of
the
California.
profits.
Y'all need to let us learn to farm. Like, get the farming school up and
Right,
up
right.
and going. I
Vocational.
can see that working so well with what you want to do with the 2 jails. Like,
Yeah.
it's not complex.
Yeah.
It's just a function of whether or not, the state
The
is going to
will,
do it.
the political
so
will.
I hope they watching. I hope they tune in.
Yeah.
If not, we gonna make them.
That's
Right.
it.
Oh, we got the 29th and the 30th.
Yeah, that's right.
We
That's
gonna
right.
carry this
Yeah,
news.
no, we can raise our voices. So I want to talk a little bit more about that youth piece because I do think that's very important. But I think what gets lost in a lot of this is our incarcerated youth.
Right.
Is the youth that they get forgotten about, right? Because they're basically put outside of society, and things that happen like they're stripped of their voting rights, right? So you're 18, 19, you're stripped of your voting rights, and so that literally takes you out of the process. So 1619 Party, do you have a piece of the platform that's focusing on our incarcerated brothers and
Ain't
sisters?
going inside because some
Absolutely.
don't
Ain't
have
going.
their
Yeah.
voting rights stripped, but they don't know how to vote
Yeah.
Absolutely.
from inside. You understand?
Well, my thing is that they got a law coming out from 2006 to July. They're going to give you a clean slate. I don't know what white people they're trying to save, but my last felony was a 92. So that means I don't even get a chance to have a clean slate. So, but we have to, it's a thing that we all have to bring our children up together. You can see that when I moved here in 75, I went to Magnificent Brothers right here when I was passing.
Okay.
I was like crying because my mom took us there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
To get our
yeah.
hair done. But when I moved on 59th place, it was one Hispanic, the Espinosas, on our block. I go down that block today. It's 2 blacks, and the rest is whatever.
Yeah.
So
Not black. Yeah.
So we really never had a community because we never had a bank. You know, and they came up and just swept everything from all the stores was Asian or Mexican or what's the people, you know what I'm saying, whatever the
Arabs,
you know what I'm saying. But we never really had the mass property in our own community.
Yeah.
Black owned.
Yeah.
right?
That's
It's a lot of
We have to
red
teach
tape.
our kids to have your own business. Stop working for the white man. See, I think different. I think why? Because I don't work for him. I work for black people.
Well, you know, that's one of the things, and I talked to Marquise Harris Dawson, his office about this when the sale of Crenshaw was up. If you look at Beverly Hills, right, they literally built Century City so that the people who live in Beverly Hills wouldn't have to, they could roll out of bed and go to work.
Go to work, right?
Okay, they ain't commuting an hour here,
That's right.
2-3 hours back and forth every day, wearing their whole souls out. They rolling out of bed and they going to work. If you look in like Santa Monica has that business corridor on Wilshire, right? So them people roll out of bed and they can roll on to Wilshire and they can have their businesses and their place of work, and that's what it is. With us, even though we have Crenshaw Boulevard, it's all retail. We do not have an A-class business thing like they just built over there where Culver City meets LA. It's on the LA side where they did all that tech building. They put the Whole Foods over there. They have the tech companies coming in, but those people who live in those apartments will be able to roll out of bed and go to work. So the quality of life becomes very different when you are within 15 minutes of your job.
Right. That's by design as well. But Nipsey was trying to do that, and which is why they had to put a screeching halt. You know, that's a whole different other show.
That's right.
But
We'll have y'all come back for that one.
Yes, because we still got to get closure on that. But the whole purpose of creating that design is not supported by our leadership, and that causes a problem, which is why you have more liquor stores, churches and dispensaries and everything else. And then you go to Beverly Hills and there's resource centers on every corner. So we again have to mobilize and create a structure on our own without asking or seeking permission. We just have to be consistent about it. And that's one of the reasons why our young people definitely need motivation in that sense to see, I can do that. But if leadership and companies are coming in our neighborhood and creating laborers instead of entrepreneurs, we don't put a stop to it, then that cycle continues of their thinking, well, I'm only going to be good enough to get a job. They don't think of themselves. Now, online, there's a lot of entrepreneur opportunities, but again, they're not geared or encouraged to do entrepreneurship on that level. So that definitely is something that we want the 1619 party to highlight is ownership rather than labor union, you know?
That's right.
Well, that's what we're pushing for, a sovereign society, like the natives. I live by Pachanga. Every person on the reservations, they wake up 30 days, every 30 days, and they have $33,000 in their bank account from 18 and up. See, they can recycle that. So that was the thing. We never recycled our money. Our money stayed in our hand for how long?
That's our money.
Yeah, that's our money.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying.
we didn't have the businesses.
I'm just saying.
We
As soon
didn't
as
have
we
the-
get it, it's going to somebody else.
That's
The
right.
Asians get the money and go right back to their community and spend it.
Yeah.
They got everything there. So they're recycling their money for 29, maybe 30 days. Without giving us none. They don't give us none because we don't own nothing. What are they going to come buy from us? Even if we did, they're trained to spend their money with their own people. Now you got the Latinos here. Same thing.
Well, yeah, when COVID touched down, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but when COVID touched down, what's the park on like Wilshire and it's not Figueroa, but it's God, I know that park is like, it's mid-city, but mid-city on its way to the east side. And they used to have a bunch of vendors. You know, pre-COVID, it was like
MacArthur
a lot
Park?
of MacArthur Park.
Yeah.
A lot of vendors, Latino vendors,
Mm-hmm.
those people had their own economic system. When
You know
COVID
why?
came and they
Yeah.
had to shut that park down, all of a sudden it was a problem because those people live on cash, and that was the first time that they couldn't transact that business in that way, and those families didn't have a safety net at all because people literally couldn't come to the park because of the whole health thing. And I remember watching that, and I thought, that's how they've been able to make it here. Because they have literally an economy that doesn't need anything else in order for them to exist. Whereas
Self-sustaining.
we don't have a self-sustaining economy. We used to back in the day, Central Avenue, there was commerce, we kind of had things going on, but it's the same problem that I'm talking about. Like on Central Avenue, there's no A1 class business center.
Right.
That like doesn't exist in our community. You brought up money. I want to talk money. I don't know if you guys remember this Mother Jones article, and it was about the 5 ways dark money groups are trying to rig elections, and it talked about the Heritage Actions efforts in basically this was the CRT. This is how CRT became a thing, but ultimately this group was able to raise.
Could you tell them the acronym?
Critical race theory,
Yeah.
and critical race theory is
we
actually
keep throwing it out, I forgot.
something that has been in law schools for years and decades.
Yeah.
70s.
And what we have been, CRT became a thing because the idea was to now bring critical race theory down to K through 12. And so nobody complained when you had to pay for it, right? If you had to pay to get a degree to learn CRT, nobody cared. You're going to pay, that's your money, you're going to do your thing. The problem was now we're making this knowledge free, and the whole crux of CRT is how do you look at actual policy, and let's say it's race neutral policy. It's a race neutral policy. How do you assess that policy and look at the economic impact or the negative impact by race? And if the race neutral, in theory, policy clearly is having a negative impact on one group or the other, well, then it's not race neutral because the effect of it, the actuality of it, means we got to do something different.
Right.
And that's teaching young people how to look at policy and how to really be more human, if you will, in their approach to other people, whether the people look at them or not. They didn't want that because that has been a way dominant society has been able to mow us down. Eminent domain by itself is race neutral, but when you consistently pull up the roads and the streets that the black people live on, then it's not so race neutral, right?
You can tell on the freeway when you're in the hood.
Yeah.
The freeway got potholes.
Right.
That's right.
If it's named Martin Luther King, yeah.
So, but
chances
now
are.
this group, they essentially raised, I think it was about $24 million, and basically they had local people call politicians and say, if you don't vote against this critical race theory, we basically are going to unseat you.
All right.
And that's what they were able to do. And so now you guys you're entering a space where this is the reality, right? This is the kind of people mentality that you're going to have to go against. How do we get the money? You got a party. Party needs to be financed. What is the longer term? And if you don't want to talk about it now, I'll respect that too. But what's the longer term goals? Because I work for really wealthy people. Everything goes around with money.
Right.
So how do we have the money piece? Because we act like black folks can't talk money, and I rebuke that.
Right,
We talk money.
Well, corporations, companies, those we're asking simply for everyone to give 1%. That is the theme. 1%, and our website is onepercentage.org. And so what we're asking is 1% of your resources, time, and incomes. It's not just money. 1% of your time could be 3 hours doing an event or soliciting or engaging. 1% of your resources, if you own a company and you may have more than one computer, you want to donate for after school program. So donating your resources is probably just as important as finances.
Yeah.
And then the money is there. It's just you have to have a product in order for people to say, oh, okay, I believe in that.
Yes.
Let me just give 1%. And 1% of your income, so if you are out of a year, if you make $300,000, only $300 is what we're asking for you to put into a community trust, so to speak. So this is what we're creating, is something where everyone gives just that 1%.
Yeah.
Some can give more or less, but 1% we're asking. If you don't have money, then you have resources. If you don't have resources, then you have time.
Yeah.
So one of the three is what we're requesting from our brothers and sisters in order to make this party happen.
So I want to get to the request part. Is that
Sure.
something that could be mandated by the state? 1%. If you're doing business in the state of California, 1% of your revenues go into this community trust
Right.
fund. You know, because we see corporations.
Well, we
kind
know
of in the-
Dr. Grills was about the orgs and the organizations.
You
This
trying
would
to-
be
you trying to
right
make
up her alley.
Oh,
Trying to make me
Right.
cuss on live streaming. But just to thinking, because I work in corporate America and we have all kinds of diversity, equity, inclusion sort of programs, right? And we do all sorts of initiatives within different communities, not Black communities, but disabled communities, LGBTQ communities. And I see what you're talking about: time, resources, and money going into those efforts, because there is I won't say it's a mandate, but there is a kind of a handshake that happens, right? Like, this is
Yes.
something that for corporate responsibility, right? So have you thought about, because we're now in this post George Floyd sort of era where all these corporations are thinking about this, right? We see them scrambling all around the world trying to figure out, how do we become more equitable? How do we address some of what we're seeing occur, right? Have you thought about, for the party, can that be mandated through the state? Like, I'm not sure how that works, because I'm not the political science, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, we pretty much don't want the state or the city or the county or the federal, for that matter, to mandate anything on our behalf.
Okay.
We want it for the
That makes
people,
sense.
by the people.
Yeah.
We need to have.
Look, now, after all the farming stuff I read, they can incentivize California
Incentivize.
corporations.
That's the right word.
In,
Right,
in,
That's the right
in
word.
some
That's the right
way.
word.
This is political, and
Yeah.
that gets to be
Right.
a little hairy. But at the same time, when you're talking about getting up the voter participation of young people, when you're talking about the education components, those are things that are really sort of nonprofit, right? They're not necessarily political. These are just things that the party itself can do. But can the state incentivize companies by giving them a tax credit? Yes, they can.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely, yes.
Yes.
That's a hell yes. But definitely, we want to mobilize something easy for people to relate to, because the biggest problems is homelessness, incarceration,
Right.
and violence.
Yes.
And so the
Homeless
way,
is more tangible.
absolutely.
Because we can get to that now.
Well, let's talk about
Yes.
that, because I know housing is a big part of the platform.
huge.
So
Yes.
let's talk about the housing piece of the platform.
Absolutely. So land acquisition is one thing that we mentioned before, but currently the programs that have been put in place from Housing and Urban Development on a federal level, when it's coming down to LA County and LA City, it doesn't go straight to the Black families. And I want to reiterate that. So I've been a housing navigator for probably about 10 years, since 2013. And most of our families in the database are Black families that have gone through the system, whether they stayed in the shelter or they process sleeping in their car. And these services, such as HOPICS and LASA, that are supposed to cater to these families who qualify for low-income housing, suddenly were number 10 on the list, but when you check back a week later, they're number 430.
Wow.
And there's no accountability from the county or the city or the state. And they are aware of this. So this is why I specifically stand for the Black families who deserve housing. And this is something within the next 60 days we want to highlight, because we can't be hypocritical with our politicians who know that they're not going to certain families, that they're reserving it for other non-Black families, which is fine.
So that must be a scoring system that, again,
Yes.
critical race theory, when we look at the implementation of the non-racial policy, is having a negative impact on our Black families.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I just want to read our 5 names: Herschel Pogue, Amanda Walker, Nikita Walker, Adriana Williams, Vanico Martin, and Tanisha Stewart. They represent over 1,300 families that registered for a voucher since last year.
Okay.
Rightfully so. And Marcia Fudge and HUD have to be in the forefront. They only gave 17,000 vouchers for the whole state of California when we have at least 100,000 every night. So that imbalance between the federal, Karen Bass and Marcia Fudge, they need to expedite the vouchers for these particular families.
Gotcha.
And then we'll sort of quiet down. But until then, the housing disparities in LA County has been pinpointed and it has to be held accountable. And so that's where we are right now with the housing disparities. If we're able to get closure and rectification in housing for these families, then we can say we have a fair housing structure. But this is beyond bias here.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about right now is representation for these black families.
So you're talking about housing acquisition. So that's like new housing acquisition through vouchers. What about housing retention? And kind of stopping the bleeding in our neighborhoods because, you know, you got to sell grandmother's house because your tax bill just went up. You can't afford that sort of thing. Have you guys thought about that? Is there a piece of the housing?
Yeah.
So talk to us about that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. The retention portion, again, a lot of rules and regulation is created from your local governance.
Yes.
And so when families who are losing their housing, and again, there are certain race or demographic, they're illegally using laws and codes in probate in order to snatch these houses. And this all is part of the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So it starts with a corrupt judicial system, the judge, the lawyer, that's not giving the correct information based on the knowledge of that person or that tenant. It could be a hereditary house given by the grandfather, but the children aren't taught or shown how to retain that home. And the loopholes is how they get these families homes.
Yeah.
And I tell you, if we do just a little bit of research, we'll see majority of the things that are set in place are corrupt and illegal, which is why we need to have a party that can educate our people and have policies that not only they are supposed to follow, but we can actually benefit from. But if we're not politically sound, it all goes back to our lack of political knowledge.
Yes.
Anything can go above our heads. So housing retention is something that definitely can be stopped. Reverse eminent domain is another portion that we put. So eminent domain is when they take the property for community use, but a lot of Blythe abandoned property for over 5-10 years is just sit there.
It has to come back.
And so we want that reversed back to the communities or nonprofits or service providers that can benefit that community.
I hope some task force members
are listening.
Are
I hope
listening
so.
to
Okay.
this. I hope y'all are listening to this because you're talking about housing proposals right now, and I read some of what's on the table, and it has none of the teeth of what you just heard come out of Dr. Truth Bay's mouth.
So we have 5 minutes. We got to get some closing comments. Our time goes really, really fast here. Just when you think we get into it, it's about time to wrap it up. So social media, the party, let people know how they can stay in touch, where they can find you, whatever you want the people to know.
Sure thing. So 1%. So we have a website, onepercentage.org. So you can go and see what our mission is. And then our Instagram is 1619 Reparation Party.
Okay.
Without the S. We deliberately left the S out because we want to just have one big reparation for the people, and not everything goes up under that. And then we have online petitions as well as personal petitions. So it's an Article 5 convention petition that we have online.
Okay.
And for those who may not know what Article 5 is, it literally is a clause in the Constitution, the 5th article, that states that 2/3 of our vote can automatically change laws. And that's the type of exercise that we were deprived of. So we want people to understand that it's in the Constitution. If 2/3 of us agree that this should be law tomorrow, it can be.
Okay.
And that's what we want to exercise to the people.
I like that.
That jumps to the front of the line. Now, is it 2/3 of the American voting people, or can it just be 2/3 of us? Because I'm always trying to move the ball.
Right. And you know what? It's really 2/3 of the voting population. And again, laws and regulations, a lot of them are illegally made. A lot of them are not even followed through. So I'm not saying you can make up your own laws, but I'm saying you can make up your own laws.
All
Okay.
right, I'm with it.
That's right.
So power to the people.
Let me go back to
Yes,
the homeless.
Yes.
When I went to Riverside Skid Row, she told me to come through there, and I asked one homeless dude, I said, have you ever seen a Native American homeless? And he was homeless for about 6 years. He
That's
went
a great
3
question.
Right.
He said, never.
That's a great question.
So if we had our own land, we'd kill that.
Right. Right. Right.
They're
Makes a
not
big
homeless.
sense.
So,
Skid Row, downtown Skid Row, 63
right.
is
Look,
black,
I put
so.
clothes on a homeless woman's back today because she was walking down the street stark naked. So
Yeah.
I believe we need reparations.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is why we do the work that we do. That is why I personally do the work that I do,
Yes,
because I see us.
Yeah.
Right.
And we are not in a good way here.
No,
Right.
not at all.
We are not in a
Not
good
at
way
all.
here. So on that note,
Yeah.
I want to thank you all for
Thank you
coming
for
through.
coming through.
Thank you.
The
Absolutely.
1619 reparation with no S
no,
party.
No.
This has the S.
This
We
has
want-
Oh, okay.
Instagram.
Okay, okay.
The specific one didn't because we just had that one.
Our
name.
Instagram.
On Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay,
Instagram.
so Instagram is 1619 reparation.
We wanna
But I
party.
want to
Yeah.
thank the 1619 reparations
Thank you,
party
Dr.
for
Bay.
coming
Thank
through.
you, Reggie.
Appreciate
And
it.
another place you
Yes.
can catch them
Appreciate you
is
guys.
next Wednesday and Thursday. I know I'm gonna see Reggie. I know I'll see you there, brother Reggie. I'll likely see you there too, Dr.
Get a
Bay.
quorum.
Next
Right.
Wednesday and Thursday in Sacramento, the California Reparations Task Force is once
Right on.
again meeting. That's where we need to be, fam. Show up, public comment both days as usual. I think public comment was extended to 2 hours too.
It was,
So if
thanks to Senator Bradford.
Thank you,
All
Senator
right.
Bradford, for putting that in.
Right
So
on.
you got double the time, folks, to get your voices heard next Wednesday and Thursday at the next meeting. So let's pull up.
Wonderful. Yes.
Definitely. And to
have
our
this way.
production crew in the booth, we see
As
y'all.
always, poetess.
And to all of our
Yep.
folks in the chat, we see you. To our moderators, thank you so much for moderating. This has been another episode of Politics in Black. We got good news coming, so stay tuned.
Big announcement coming.
Follow Chad. Follow me,
Don't follow me,
Friday
follow
Jones. We got some things coming off. And so we thank you guys so much. If you thought this was worthy of the task force hearing it, ping them.
Yeah.
Send it to them.
Let 'em know.
Email it to them. Let them know the kinds of things that we talk about here on Politics in Black. Thank you so much.
And like the
Right on.
video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and donate if you can, if you got it in your pockets, because we running this on our own money right now. So thank you, folks, for being here, and we'll catch you next time.
Lauren, take us out.
14th California Reparations Task Force is scheduled for March 29th and March 30th.
All California Reparations Task Force meetings are open to the public and welcome public comment. Amend the Mass Media Group provides coverage of all California Reparations Task Force meetings. Tune in, tap in, and testify. Reparations Now, fam.